Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti 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 Asatoma Sadgamaya Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Amritangamaya. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Namaste everyone. We at Advaita Academy welcome you all to this 1 month long Oneness Festival, a global celebration of Adi Shankaracharya ji, which is almost coming to an end now. All good things have to come to an end. In this session, we first have the discussion between Nithin Sridhar ji and Kiran Vadlamani ji on non-dualism in contemporary art. This will be followed by a Kannada video talk on Shankaracharya ji's Varakaya Pravesh by Dr. Ganesh Bhatt ji. And now for the new attendees, we have 4 different sessions every day, 2 in the morning at 6 a.m. Indian Standard Time and 2 in the evening at 6:30 p.m. Indian Standard Time. Nithin Sridhar ji is an author and speaker who writes on politics, dharma, Vedanta. He is the author of 5 books, with Samanya Dharma being his most recent book. His next book is an English commentary on Ishavasya Upanishad. He is currently the chief curator of Advaita Academy and the editor of India Facts. Kiran ji is a venture investor, social entrepreneur, seeker, and aspiring artist. He is working on a global renaissance that is based on Indic civilizational thoughts and founded by INDICA. He founded INDIC Academy, a not-for-profit institution for this purpose in 2015. He is also founder of Advaita Academy. In 5 years of existence of INDIC Academy, and is perhaps the fastest growing social enterprise that is combination or has principal elements in open society, open university, a think tank, a publishing house, incubator, donor agency, NGO, and whatnot. Through artificial intelligence, he envisions India emerging as a soft superpower in our own lifetime, leading the global agenda on health, peace, sustainability, and happiness. His social, political, economic, and cultural outlook is one of a dharmic liberal. It is a great job of Indian Indic society, Indic Academy. No time is better than what it is today, when we feel the almost collapse of Western Enlightenment thinking based culture of the competition and the markets and democracy. Communism has also failed to deliver the much needed support to the theoretical base for organizing principles of the society. One size fits all, a kind of the bedrock principles for organizing societies in form of democracy and freedom and market seems to have been failing off and on. The social, political, economic, and moral, ethical fabric is weakening. It simply is not working properly. Markets and democracies, sans moral and ethical fabric, have already shown the ugly signs. Communist model has almost certified to have been failed. Rest, quote unquote rest, following the West in downloading those 6 killer apps a la Neil Ferguson preposition for organizing the societies is giving bad results from time to time. Results are seen and experienced, not very promising or not very benevolent. The order is collapsing on an ongoing basis. The corona has given ugly shape. So in this situation, we strongly believe that the Shankar Advaita Vedanta as a bedrock principle for organizing principles of the society will give an effective alternative, and the Indic Academy and Advaita Academy is poised to be a foundation laying institution for doing this. That work is as big as the work of the Enlightenment thinkers of the West in 17th and 18th and 19th century. Now, may I request the discussion on non-duality in contemporary art between Nithin Sridharji and the founder of INDICA Academy, Mr. Kiran Vadlamani ji.
Good evening, all. Very warm welcome to the session. And I just wanted to, while I'm here live, Nithin and I, we just recorded the conversation sometime back. So we want to play that. And after that, I'm here to answer any questions.
Sri Gurubhyo Namaha.
Namaste, Kiranji, and very happy to be having this conversation today. I have known you for more than 5 years, and I very well know your interest in both Advaita Vedanta and art. So when I saw the topic, non-dualism in contemporary art, and I was immediately fascinated. And so I'll straight away jump with a question. How did you get into all this? Was it that you discovered art because of your investigation into Advaita, or is your interest in art, or was it the reverse, that your interest in art led you to Advaita Vedanta?
Thank you, Nithin. I was actually always fascinated with art and philosophy right from my childhood. I was having two distinct passions, both pursuit of study of philosophy and also art. So it was both of them were there parallelly during my entire childhood. But at some point they sort of intersected. And I guess that point came first when I started my journey into Vedanta, which was way back in the year 2001. When that's when my journey into Vedanta started. And somewhere probably around 2005, 2006, the intersection started when I started visiting a lot of sculpture parks around the world, and when I was exposed to contemporary art, global contemporary art, so to speak, that's when slowly I started understanding the beauty of contemporary art, and this sort of started intersecting, and both my interests in Vedanta on one hand and contemporary art on the other hand, started intersecting after 2006, sort of, and it started getting deeper and deeper as my pursuit of Vedanta also increased, and as my travels and as my exposure to contemporary art also increased. And I think around 2010, 2011, it sort of manifested itself in further forms when I set up Creative India Academy and started promoting Indian artists. And so broadly, that's the period where I would say the intersection started.
Wonderful, wonderful. So I have heard you speak of this, that you try to see Vedantic themes in the contemporary art, and also you use this art to kind of refine your own understanding of Vedanta. So can you share about some of the contemporary artists, whose work has inspired you, and whose works you see the themes of oneness and non-duality?
Sure. Actually, in fact, my presentation, I have several artists who have enjoyed and who I learned from them. But before that, this itself, I'm feeling a bit out of place in this festival, in the sense that you have for 30 days you have several Shastra scholars, and you have sages, you have ardent seekers, you have several variety of speakers in the last 30 days. You have artists. And then I'm feeling a bit of out of place in the sense that suddenly there is this non-dualism and contemporary art, and how that fits in. So first of all, to all the listeners and who have enjoyed this festival, I want to just say that this is one of those things where I just felt, I mean, this is my passion, and I just felt that this would be a good opportune time for me to share some of these thoughts. So sorry for this aberration, so to speak. But if you look at Vedantic teaching itself, you will see that there are a number of usages of metaphors, right? And every metaphor, like, we have the snake and a rope metaphor, or you have the gold and the bracelet metaphor, you have the wave and the ocean metaphors, and you have so many stories. So all these are sort of in a way art, because art itself is a form of metaphor, because an artist is trying to communicate something indirectly through his creation. There is a sense of his life, his values, his understanding of his world around him, his reality around him, and he synthesizes all of that into his creation. And then you have the viewer, you have the person who is viewing the art. He has his own journey, his own sense of experiences, his own sense of values, and then with that lens, he views the artist's creation. So you have sometimes what the artist meant and what the viewer has seen and perceived, they match, and sometimes they don't. But still there is enjoyment. There is still the viewer gets something out of that beauty that has been created. But it's something different from what the artist has intended. And most of my journey in art in the last 15 years has been that I wear a sort of a Vedantic lens, an Advaitic lens, whenever I see art. And that art which is I respond to invariably has a Vedantic lens. So I found that increasingly I like only art which has a Vedantic message. So otherwise it's okay. I mean, it's figuratively nice, or it's whatever. It's a nice concept, nice this thing. But if I don't see something that strikes me and makes me remember a concept, then it's okay. But once I see that, then man, I'm just excited about it, and I jump all over the place. And in fact, the artist wouldn't even have imagined that somebody would be viewing it with that lens. So you must understand. So just to go back to that concept of Visheshananda and Atmananda. So art ultimately gives you the pleasure, right? It's one of those object, and an object that gives you pleasure. But it's a journey into Atmananda, right? Yeah, because it's a journey for me, because it goes back to the source, and I feel that oneness with the art, especially those art forms that I like.
That's a very very wonderful, apt way of putting. And I remember even when I was in school and we used to have these competitions like where some images are shown and we are asked to interpret. I remember that I always used to try to see for a philosophical, deeper meaning in a very mundane art. So I can see an echo in what you say, that you wear a Vedantic lens and see everything. And it's very interesting because you spoke about this art leading to inner journey for Ananda, and I remember a very interesting thing that in some of the Bhakti schools they speak about this Bhakti Rasa as Brahmananda Sahodara, and they do these kinds of meditations, and Ras Leela meditation, and it's kind of art, it's an art, and they conceive this rasa or the pleasure derived from art as a sahodara, brother of ultimate Brahmananda. So I find it very fascinating.
Yeah.
So can you now share,
Sure. I have a
more
presentation.
about
I
this
have
presentation?
about 15 sections. I'll just quickly walk through them. The first thing is that I see non-dualism in symbols, and my journey as a sort of an artist, as a non-dual artist, started with trying to create the logo for Advaita Academy. So that was my first step, so to speak. And before that, there's a Chinese artist whom I came across in Singapore called Min Yayo, and his painting is a very, very interesting painting. And if you see that, can you see the screen?
Yeah, I can.
Yeah. So if you see that, it's a very, I have this painting, and I was very, very much in love with it. So you actually see the head of a man like this, is tilted like that. And then you see that the lines that he draws, the lines that he draws are just when he wants to create the form of the human face, he thickens it. And then once he leaves that, he lightens it. So it's the same lines, it's just the cloud. It's a cloud. It's wherein you can see Tattvamasi there. You can straight away see that you are that. You can see the man, the Jiva, and the Brahman, and both of them are the same, because the artist has not painted the man separately. You see, because he has taken the lines, and just at that point he strengthens it and then lights it. So it's when I saw that, and I said, wow, this is an interesting way of representing that thing. And then one of my favorite artists, Anthony Gormley, is from UK. He created this thing called Quantum Cloud, this outside London in the piers. And the name itself, quantum, sort of, when it takes your mind to quantum physics, right? And you get into reality and what the physicists are trying to do, and then therefore we know what consciousness is, but when what people are trying to do in terms of understanding matter, and he presents that in the form of a cloud, and it's a very interesting, again, a sculpture. It's a physical sculpture made of hardcore tense steel, and you can see the sculpture. That there again, you can see the man, you can see the human figure, and you can see the cloud, the quantum cloud, right? So you can see both at the same time, and in different directions. Sometimes you can see the man, sometimes you can't see the human form. And this is see, now you can't make out in this really it's just a mesh of steel, and the form is not clear. Again, so this is the first. Brahman Satyam Jagat Mithya Devo Brahmayana Para. You know, that reality there, I see reality in forms of steel, right? Hard steel, which doesn't change, and the quantum cloud, right? And there's no difference between that reality and the individual. So this sort of again, that thing struck me. And then I said, okay, let me make this as the first logo of Advaita Academy was this. You can see that the form of the human figure, and then you can see the quantum cloud there. Again, the urge to represent the unity of both of reality and the jiva, right? Brahman and jiva. So that was the first logo. And in fact, yeah, I mean, it is just one of those experiments and kind of a thing. And
so
then
when I see that image, it reminds me of, you know, fluctuating fire. You know, the Agni, the fluctuating fire. The form is constantly changing. It has a form, but it does not have a form. So it kind of, you know, reminds me of that imagery. Like Brahman is both Saguna and Nirguna, has a form, does not have a form, nothing is clear. It's very interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. So then this was so in 2000, 2010. I came across this book by John Langdon. John Langdon is a very interesting person. He's actually, I don't know, you've read Dan Brown's books, right? You've read Angels and Demons, and you've read all his books. And the protagonist in Dan Brown's books is by Professor Robert Langdon.
Yes.
That's the hero, Professor Robert Langdon. That Langdon word is taken from John Langdon. Because Dan Brown, when he wrote Angels and Demons, he got in touch with John Langdon because John Langdon specializes in ambigrams. An ambigram is a word that can be read the same both ways. And he and Scott Kim, they were two parallelly who created this concept of ambigrams. An ambigram wherein in whichever way you see, it's the same thing. So suddenly I got this idea that, you know what, Advaita should be an ambigram, you know. And I wrote to the Professor John Langdon and said, you know, can you make an ambigram of Advaita? And first he said some words lend themselves easily to ambigrams, some words don't. And he said, yeah, let me try. Then he came back and he said, wow, I'm able to do it. And then he created this ambigram for Advaita. So if you see you see this logo every day, and most of the viewers who are watching this festival, you see the clip in the beginning. So this is Advaita. So this Advaita. But the thing is that you can read the same thing the reverse. So you see that? That's an ambigram. So not two, it's one, right? So Advaita can be read both ways. And that's an ambigram that I got it created by Professor Langdon. Because suddenly I got this idea that, look, why don't we think about the logo of Advaita as an ambigram? And that's how this has happened. Then I was not satisfied with it. And I said, I wrote back to him and said, I have a few more words. He said, okay, give me. And then the second one was not two. So this is a circular ambigram. So if you can read it both ways, you can just turn around and see it's not two. It's continuous. It's not two, not two, not two, not two, not two, not two, not two. And if you read it this way or this way, it's the same. So a not two is also an ambigram that has been created. Right?
Amazing.
And this is Tattvamasi. right? TATTVAMASI, Tattvamasi. And there you go. That's an ambigram too. You can read it both ways and you'll see you are that. And the next one is thou art that. So I was not satisfied with Tattvamasi. I said, thou art that. So we made that. You can see that? You can see closely. Thou art that. Thou art that. Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
That thou art. So you can see that this is called a circular ambigram. So it doesn't break the flow, and it can be read both ways. It's the same. Right. And this is a simple one. Okay. So you can see one, and you can see it like this also. It's one. So this is these are the ambigrams that John Langdon has made for Advaita, and it all came to a simple desire to communicate the meaning. We call about Shabda Pramana. In a way, this is Shabda Pramana. This is I'm communicating through the word physically the essence of Advaita. It's just one of those beautiful things that. And then a friend of mine from UK who written this famous book, The Book of One. So we were republishing the second edition, and I wanted to create an ad campaign, which we published in Yoga Journal and other places. So I wanted to create an ad campaign. So I was not sure. So I wrote to Professor Langdon. I said, Professor, because Dan Brown at that time in 2011 released The Lost Symbol.
Okay.
His book, the latest book was Lost Symbol. Right? So I wanted to pun on that because I want to take advantage and ride on Dan Brown's popularity. And so I wrote to Professor Langdon and said, look, I want to play this mischief, and I want to, a little bit of chutzpah, I hope you don't mind. I'm going to use your name and release an advertisement. So he said, no problem. You love chutzpah. I love chutzpah too. So, and then he said, go ahead, no problem. So I punned on the fact that Dan Brown was releasing his book, The Lost Symbol. And then I said, Professor, because John Langdon is also a professor. Right? He's a professor at Pennsylvania University. So I said, Professor Langdon unveils a new symbol. And then I put 1, not 2, Advaita and all that, and said, Professor John Langdon, widely credited as the founder of contemporary ambigrams art form, whose name and work have been used by Dan Brown in the best-selling novels, has devised an ambigram representing the concept of Advaita or non-duality. Effectively meaning not two, Advaita reveals that the nature of both ourselves and the universe is essentially one. The Book of One by Dennis White. So I just advertised. So I just enjoyed punning on Professor Langdon and creating this campaign. So it's one of those things. So
have you interacted with other artists apart from Professor Langdon as well, that you showed that sharing your perspective on their art?
On and off. Sometimes you hit. I'll tell you some of the Chinese artists, and I'll come to that. Sometimes sometimes they're too big. Sometimes you make a connect. So yes, I do interact. So one of the things that art has taught me is the concept of Sakshi Bhava, the witness element to it. And Anthony Gormley has really contributed to that understanding of what it means to be a witness, non-judgmental witness, and to see the world passing by, to be the movie screen metaphor again. The world is a stage metaphor again. So again, you see a lot of metaphors that keep coming up. And so I came up with this concept of I witness, therefore I am. So the I am is a witness. And therefore, because I'm witnessing, I am, and not the other way. And this is a series that Anthony Gormley has done It's called Event Horizon, Horizon Field, inside Australia. There's series of installations he does where he puts human figures in the most obscure places. Like one in the Crosby Beach, he has put human figures in the water. He's put them in the Alps in Switzerland. He's put them in the city. And he's put them in Australia in a lake called Lake Ballard outside of Perth. You know, it's like a huge 70 miles radius kind of a lake bed. So he has put all these figures. He loves that. So you can see that here the man is witnessing the city. You can see that that image there.
Yeah.
Here, this is inside Australia. So this is like a big sand lake bed in which he's put in these installations. So you have to drive quite a long distance and just enjoy this. So here, these are in Alps. So they're all fixed there.
Okay.
They're all fixed there. I mean, it's not like a museum. It's not like a park. They're all in natural environments, bearing the elements, you know, facing the elements. They're all there. They're there, like they're somewhere there. So you can come across, if you're hiking in Alps, you'll come across suddenly something there. But see, this is Crosby Beach in near Scotland, UK. See, you can see all those figures there in the water. So the high tide, they get drowned, and the low tide, you can actually see them. They're all fixed there in the water, in the beach. So this has been a very profound impact on me. These installations have had a very big impact on me, just because, you know, something is outside the city, in the elements, in water, in the mountains. What are they watching? What are they witnessing? You know, you put yourself in that, you're just sitting there and you're observing, right? So if you're in the city, you're observing all the things that are happening in the city and all the things that are, you know, if you're in New York and you're observing all the greed and all that's happening. If you're in the elements, you're watching time pass by and you're just observing, right? You're just a witness. This has had a very deep impact on me, that concept of Sakshi Bhava, that you know, that has come again when I created the installation. That element found place, and that's why I mentioned this, the kind of impact. So this is the installation.
You created this in your school, right?
Yes.
In your
yes.
school, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So I can now proudly say I'm an artist. So because I did one installation in my life, so I can say I'm an artist. But yeah, so this is my alma mater, a school I studied in all my life, right from childhood. And I'm still in touch with the founder and the principal. And she reached out to me and said, Kiran, we are celebrating 50 years. Can you make something for us? And then, so she said, she sent that left image. She said, can you make something like that for us? Is it possible for you to do that? I said, look, I'm not a figurative kind of a person. I'm more a conceptual kind of a person. So I want to do something. And it so happened, I was on Twitter in those days. It just so happened that I saw this image of caring hands from a Swiss artist. So I sent her this image on the same day and said, look, I want to do something like this, and I want to take your hand and then build around it, and just allow me that flexibility, but I don't want to do this. She said, fine. I mean, it's your baby, so go ahead and do what you want. Our school has the motto, child is the father of man. It's a poem by William Wordsworth, right? Child is the father of man.
Yeah.
So I wanted to play on that. I wanted to do something which, it's a very funny, child is the father of man. What does it mean? And I just went through that poem again, which I knew when I was a child. And then something caught my attention. So it says, my heart leaps up when I behold a rainbow in the sky. So was it when my life began. So is it now I'm a man. Or let me die. The child is the father of man. And I could wish my days to be bound to each to each by natural piety. So I was, doing this Googling of this, what did he mean by that? And one thing, there are different interpretations of this poem, but one thing that struck me, and it bound each to each. So he wishes every day is bound each to each by natural piety, by natural divinity, right? And then there's a reference saying that maybe he's talking about consciousness. He's talking about consciousness. And then if you go back and see, so was it when my life began, so is it now I'm a man, so be it when I shall grow old. So what is that constant? What is that changeless thing in your entire life if you look back? What is it that doesn't change? Your entire body keeps changing, right? Your thoughts keep changing. Everything about you changes. But what is it that doesn't change? Is our awareness.
The consciousness.
Right?
Yeah.
Is our awareness. Is our consciousness. That doesn't change. What it was 20 years back, what it is now is the same. So then I said, wow. So then, and then I said, let me now make something on the basis of witness. Essentially, if somebody comes to that place, he should witness what he did when he was a child, and how is. So that's the thing. And so I asked her to give me. So she gave the hand mold, and we blew it up, and then she signed. And that's the that's the installation that you can see there. That's those are our fingers, which we took a mold. And that is the first classroom that she conducted. She started the school with eight students. So that's the students. Okay. And then because we are celebrating 50 years, I made the access like a film reel, like a reel. Right? Those you can see the steps are like a reel. And that I made 50 steps to celebrate the 50 years. And totally in that school, in that school, 5,000 students graduated in the 50 years. So I planted 5,000 plants, and those flowers are 5,000 flowers. And then what I did was, I took the names of all the 5,000 children and engraved them as fingerprints on the fingers. So you can see that you can see that the whole thing, they're all, so as much as the imprint that she had on them, they also had on her, right? So that was the idea in making all the 5,000 names imprinted as fingerprints, right? Yeah. So that was the idea. But basically, the concept was that if a person comes there, he sits there in the classroom, and then he walks down all the steps, and then he reads this note which talks about how it is. He can think about his classmates who are all planted as those plants. He can think of the teacher, and then look at his life gone by. So that was, and reflect on that. So that what you saw, that Gormley's witness found its manifestation. So while somebody can see that this is nothing but non-duality, in the sense that it's a concept of witness taken from something and it's just grown out like that. So
you should do more installations like that. You should do more installations.
Thank you. So that's Abdul Kalam, and that's Manga Devi, my founding principal. So that was 5 years back, and that was a very great occasion for me personally. Now, if you just look at, we move on to these aphorisms. Have you wondered? The beauty of sutras. There's a abstruse aphorism. There's a small sutra, and on that you can write a 10,000 word commentary, right? And that 10,000 word commentary or a story or this thing can be condensed into 4 words. From an artistic point of view, it's incredible. That ability to expand and ability to compress. And we don't do it often enough, but I just love the fact that if you are able to communicate as briefly as possible, something which is very profound, it's very, very, because it gives you a lot of time to reflect. How did the act of condensing things, it's a beautiful act, because it's not an easy act to condense something into 2 words or 3 words, right? Because everything makes sense. It's not just randomly putting 2 words, right? Everything makes sense. The construction, everything makes sense. It's a beautiful thing. And it's always fascinating for me to explore that. And of course, I don't know Sanskritam and I don't know, but I just love that as a concept, as an artistic concept. And, this concept or, Ikigai concept, the beauty of Ikigai got very famous because of this Venn diagram, because that whole concept was able to be presented in this Venn diagram in terms of what you're good at, what you love, what the world needs, what you can be paid for. This Venn diagram is a very popular Venn diagram. I use it often in this. So I just love this concept of ability to abstract, condense, and expand, condense. This is just a beautiful thing to communicate. And so if you see the tagline of INDICA Academy on self, selfless, and self. It started as a poem, and it's just in those 3 words, I was trying to compress my understanding of what I wanted to be as an enabler to, on behalf of INDICA Academy, to people whom I interact with, to condense that. So in the first round, when you read that, self, selfless, self, what does it mean? Does anybody immediately understand? No. Self, selfless, self. And one self is small and second self is small. The third self is capital S. And so in a way, what I'm trying to communicate in that self, selfless self, in my own way of making an aphorism, is that I'm saying, first discover your Swadharma. First discover what you're good at, what is your aptitude, what is your skill set, and try to understand yourself. Then try to work selflessly, right? Less self, less ego, selflessly. Try to work for a dharma. So then you work as an entrepreneur, you think of it, work selflessly, the selfless part. So that's what, we encourage people to, set up platforms and ask them to be independent, like how you run Advaita Academy, Yogini runs Indic Today, Abhinav runs Indic Book Club. All these are, they're working selflessly. And then the third stage with the capital self is discovery of yourself, which is the third part after you finish the Karma Yoga and get into Gnana Marga. Then you get into the self mark, which is what we are trying to do now. We're doing this 3-year courses that we talked about for Advaita Academy, this Yogacharya course, the executive course. All these things that we're trying to do is for people who are on that path of discovering the capital self. So this is, again, I've learned this from just this concept of trying to be as short and concise as possible. Now, this is something which just struck me when my family, nephews and nieces and all came, and they were all playing damsharads. And I was listening to Swamiji's talk on, and suddenly something struck me, is that if people ask me about Karma Yoga, can I tell about Karma Yoga in 2 words, in 2 symbols? You know, can I do it? Because again, this whole thing of condensing, you know, the aphorism, you know, the physical aphorism, this is just a physical part. You know, can I do it? And then suddenly it struck me, Ishwararpana Prasada Bhavana, right? So, and it just suddenly struck me that I can just do this, Arpana, right? I can do this, and I can do this, and I can do this, right? So I'm accepting the prasadam. I'm doing this. Just 2 symbols. Karma Yoga is explained. That's it. And in fact, I tell my son, and I often pray like this. When in the morning, I actually physically do this, saying that I'm offering all my will, my effort at your feet. And the evening, I actually thank like this. So it's a very simple way of Ishwararpana Prasada Bhavana to cultivate that. You know, everything is at your lotus feet, and whatever has happened during the day, thank you very much, and you accept it as a prasadam. So this again, it goes back to, you know, the desire to communicate through symbols, concise, you know, those kind of things. So this is something, you know, this is some of these things I want to do at some point in time, but, you know, we talk about we are not the bodies, right? So that's a very important non-dualistic teaching. And how do we go about understanding that, you know, like, you know, so again, there's a hotel room that Anthony Gormley built in London. So I just finished. In fact, I had a fortune to meet. I was fortunate to meet him. Then I was in London, and I went to this hotel in Mayfair, and the sculpture was there. That's actually a room, and in that room, it's an inside of a man. Inside of a man, there's only one bed there, and there's nothing else. But then you can see all the counters of the inside of a man. Right. Okay. So this is you can see that shape there. That's a man sitting. Can you see that? Can you see this?
Yeah.
This is a hotel. This is a hotel room, and this one is a special suite. This is a sculpture made by Anthony Gormley, in which there's only one bed, and you can see the insides of a man. So
wow, you know, that's very beautiful.
Yes, and I find it very fascinating, and I think that, you know, if I want to meditate on the Panchakosha theory and look at, you know, different layers of my body, it's better to go inside a body and then, you know, meditate and do mananam on that. The other thing is, when I was watching this movie Gravity, you know, beautiful movie. It's just an extraordinary movie, beautifully taken and all that. And then I suddenly remember Kalpana Chawla, Indian, who died in the Columbus. She's from Haryana, and so I suddenly remembered her. Immediately after watching this movie, I remembered her. I remembered an interview of her I read in those days. And one of the things she talks about is saying that in space, where there's no gravity, you are just your thoughts. You know, in the interview, she says that, you know, you are just your thoughts. After watching this movie, I suddenly remember that interview which I read, you know, 15, 20 years back. And then I suddenly scrambled upon it. And then I got that. And then it just struck me, why don't we, at some point in time when the costs come down, whenever I want to meditate on Nirvana Shatkam, and whenever I want to meditate that I'm not the body, I wear a space suit and go into a chamber where there's no gravity, right? And then you don't feel your body, right? And then you're just thinking about your thoughts. And then maybe you can go into your reflected consciousness and anchor yourself there. So, so for me, this is one of the experiments I want to do it sometime in my life when the costs come down. Just, create a anti-gravity chamber for meditation on Nirvana. So this is the other one I found very interesting, and I'm going to do this someday. There's a sculptor called Alva Balasubramanian. He created this from Odonil, from a refreshener. Refreshener and Odonil in the bathroom, it actually melts. It just dissolves, right? It just dissolves because it interacts with the air after you remove the foil, and it interacts there. It just dissolves and it goes in there. So he was very fascinated with that, and then he went to them, and then he created this bust made of a refreshener. So he puts it in a glass cubicle, and after 3 months, the whole bust disappears. So someday I want to 3D print my bust and put it in a glass case, and I want to observe as I meditate on Nirvana Shatkam. I want to observe that thing disappear. It's just a beautiful concept to understand that you are not the body. It's just figuratively. It's just something which fascinates me. There's so much of intellectualization and so much of ego that we all have. Everything is ego driven. Understanding is ego driven, and then we tend not to surrender. That surrender because it's an intellectual exercise, and then the surrender is lost. And I was listening to Swamiji's talk, Swami Paramahananda's talk on choicelessness, and then I had this sculptor called Ma Yu. This sculptor is he is actually a Chinese artist. He's fighting the Mao, and he's fighting the communists. But he, through this, the way he surrenders, what Swamiji says, for logical problems, there are logical solutions. For non-logical problems, there are no choicelessness. Surrender is the only thing. There are no solutions. So somehow I could understand this better. This is a very, very interesting sculpture by a South Korean artist called Maya Lin. She's an architect in New York. And she came to prominence when she designed the Vietnam Memorial in Washington. And this is called Wave Field. This is in a sculpture park called Storm King, which is just outside New York. And so I was very excited. This is one of the best sculpture parks out there, and one of the biggest ones. So when I went there, I was very excited to come there. I was on the top of a hill. And I knew that her work. But the moment I saw this, what struck me? When I saw these waves, I saw the mountains there, and I saw the waves there. I saw the samundar there. I saw the ocean there, and I saw the waves here. You see, that's so beautiful that you can see that there is no difference between the sculpture pieces that she has done and the actual mountains that are there. So all I could think of the wave and the ocean. And that was just what was striking to me, that you have the real mountains, and here these smaller mounds are all the man-made mountains, right? So it just struck me. And then I was thinking, that Shankar Bhagavan's thing about, I know you're not different from me, but I surrender to you just like a wave surrenders to the ocean. I don't remember the Samskrita version, but the essence is that, I felt that. You could see the actual ocean there, and you could see the smaller version of the waves there. And then you can see that interaction between these two. And then suddenly very profound feeling, just overwhelms you. It's one of those very, very sacred feeling I had when I visited this. Mauna Vyakhya Prakati. Beautiful, no? That's learning from silence. Dakshinamurti Stotram. You've written a book on Dakshinamurti Stotram. And, it's just fascinating.
Yeah.
It's just fascinating that you can actually teach through silence, learn from silence. It's just beautiful. It's just so profound. I don't know, every time I listen to that, just gives me beautiful feelings about that whole thing. Just listening to the Stotram itself. And so it always stays with you, what is that construct? I mean, that whole concept of teaching through silence, what a beautiful construct. It stays with me. And then I came across this person, this John Cage. Is a piano, he is a musician. And he created this piece called 4.33. So for 4 minutes, 33 seconds, he sits before a piano, opens it, and then just sits like that silently, then closes it, and that's the piece, right? And it's a very interesting, very, very popular, because there's no music. So an artist, musician, he's playing, there's no playing, right? So what does it mean? It means that there's an absence of something, right? There's an absence of music. And it just stayed with me. And then I actually was trying to Google him and understanding, you know what? There is an Indian Vedantic influence there. In the 50s, I love it when I discover these things. Geeta Sarabhai, from the Sarabhai family, Geeta Sarabhai, she was in the US to learn Western music and all that. And then she met John Cage, and then she told him about, how to quieten your mind, how to still your mind, how to be silent, all those things. And that sort of influenced him to come up with this. This music or lack of music is seminal. It's just, and this stays with me, see how a thought of silence, then it traverses somewhere else, and it becomes like this. And then this is an artist called Fred Sandback. What you're seeing here is a museum in at least 3-4 rooms are dedicated to him. They're all thin pieces of thread, right? There's just thread hanging from, there's nothing else there. But there's an illusion that they're very straight, and there's an illusion, but they're just thin threads there, right? And that artist actually, when he started creating this, he wanted to remove as much material as possible, right? So in a way, John Cage is absence of sound. Sandback is absence of material, right? So so starting from Dakshinamurti Stotram to John Cage to Sandback, I am always thinking about what does it mean to remove something, and what can you remove, what can you learn from removing that, right? And then so this
reminds me of this reminds me of this Yoga Sutra verse, Chitta Vritti Nirodha. The vritti of the mind is vanquished, and it's wonderful.
Yeah. So it looks like a plate. Actually, if you visit there, this looks like a plate, but there's no plate. There's just beautifully put strings, and it looks like as if a plate is hanging around. And then it struck me there, and then I was like, this is again in New York, DR Beacon. And I was just thinking, thought is my material. Thought is a material, and supposing I make a movie wherein I am making a movie wherein you enter the movie theater for 90 minutes, there's no visuals, and only a sound gives you the the story. So you're actually going to a theater to watch a movie which doesn't have visuals. Just imagine. And someday I want to make that, a movie without visuals, with a storyline and proper storyline. It could be Drigdrishya Viveka. It could be an adventure also. It could be like in Mount Peru, or it could be anything. I'm trapped in a cave. I can't see anything. I'm trying to come out of the cave, and the whole story is. There can be any number of stories wherein there's no visual, but there's a movie. So what does it mean? There's an absence of something. You're removing something and then communicating and teaching, right? And to me, that's very fascinating. And then I thought of this, came up with this idea called art without material. Supposing I am sitting like a satsang, I'm sitting and there are 5 people who have come to listen about my art. And they close their eyes and I close my eyes. And I describe what the art I have in my mind to the minutest detail, to the excruciating detail, to complete detail. I visualize the whole thing. And they in turn visualize it. But there's no material. It's just expression and reception, right? So it is art. That I am doing art in a satsang where I'm describing a sculpture that I have designed, and I'm doing it. And I want to do this at some point in time. Maybe you will be my bakra and we can do this. But actually, in a way, if you think, this is like it's like there's no creation. Ultimately, they are adyaro papavad. I talk to you about creation of art, and then there's no art. Get out. I don't know. But yeah, this is what I learned from that simple thing of teaching through silence. It's just fascinating. It is fascinating. Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, this there is a tale in Upanishad, in this Upanishad about the 5 senses, about prana, about Prajapati, and they have a fight. You remember that they have a fight as to who is superior. The eye has everybody. This is a tale that was there, 3,000 years ago. That was between, and then there's a resolution. This is a beautiful tale, right? It is there, and then this movie called Inside Out, which came 3 years ago. I was watching this movie. It's a beautifully drafted, beautiful movie. I don't know. Have you seen this movie?
Yeah. It's very good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know how we are doing for time, but all the emotions are there, and then you have, people can watch this. If they have not watched this, you can watch the trailer and you'll understand what I'm talking about. So they have all these concepts of subconscious, memory, and all the emotions. There's an interplay between that. So when I first saw the movie, I was like, wow, this is a brilliant movie. Then I remembered saying that, what, we had a similar concept way back, like Vedanta Upanishad talked about a similar construct. And then I was immediately Googling and saying that, did he copy my, my Vedanta, what happened? Was he influenced? My quest is always to see tracing back the influence. But then I discovered that there's a copyright dispute going on between, somebody claims saying that this was my story and this was my story and all that. So far. So I wanted to intervene in that case and say, boss, this is Brihadaranyaka Upanishad story. hang on, we've been there before. And yeah, it's just fascinating. And from this, I am very keen of creating a couple of stories. I want to write a story using our construct about buddhi, manas, atma, about vasanas. You can actually write a story developing from the Vedanta Upanishad parable, and actually see the struggles that all seekers face. We all face these struggles. We are tempted, we have to work hard, we want to be selfless. All these struggles that go in our mind, if they're actually portrayed like inside out, the struggles of a seeker, and present everything, how the interplay between the emotions and the senses, I want to eat this, I shouldn't be eating this, from there to I should get up in the morning and study, the lazy analysis said, it's okay, no problem, Guruji will be okay. You can actually write the struggles of a seeker from inside the mind of a seeker, using this kind of a template, and it will be a fascinating tale, in my opinion. Somebody should write this. The other thing,
we are already outrunning the time. Yeah, so I think we are already 1 hour into the discussion.
Okay, so we probably will break it up
should
into 2 parts.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll wrap it up in 10.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, in 5 to 10 minutes.
So art is something which let me quickly. So this one is about consciousness, and there's this new concept called stream of consciousness, and there's a new form, like James Joyce and a few authors. They've written stream of consciousness, where is the inner monologue of writing. So I came up with this theory that why don't we write on the stream of consciousness about consciousness. So I want to write an essay, about consciousness, but write it in the form of a stream of consciousness without, without full stop, without punctuations and all that. So I actually wrote a paragraph on that, but we can deal with it later. This is something which is a movie called Memento. I don't know whether you've seen this movie called Gajni. It's a very interesting movie. Yes. Yeah. So the original movie is called Memento, and that is about this memory and the concept of memory. So this is something which I want to explore more deeper about memory. And one of the things in this movie is that there are 2 tracks. One is a forward track, which is in black and white, and one which is in backward, and then they connect. That's Christopher Nolan of Inception. This was his first movie. It's a fantastic movie. You should watch it. You'll understand this concept of memory in a very, very cinematic way. This is an artist I discovered in Singapore, and he also is focused on memories. And what you see there is huge photographic prints, like a cinema reel, right? So it's just a cinema reel photos, like how the 35mm photos are there, right? So the one on the right side is bigger ones, and the one on the smaller left side is the smaller ones. So you have that that kind of you can see the right side is the slightly bigger ones. The left side is like a haze. So he's exploring memory, saying that there's some memory which is like a haze, some memory which is more like you can more clearly remember. So the moment I saw this in an exhibition, I said the first thing I saw it is, how memory is like, what can I, it suddenly I wanted to look at snake and rope, and then I came up with this idea. I went to, I sent my son, my nephew to Shanghai. He was in Beijing, and he went and met the artist. So this is one of the Chinese artists, and he was prepared to do it for me. So I wanted him to take the Memento movies film and create this for me. So I wanted a layer, Memento, this Chinese layer, and I wanted a snake and a rope. So you know, I engage with him. So this is what I wanted. So you can see this. Can you see this now? This is a draft kind of a thing that I made. But if you see on the left side, there's a small. Can you see this? Okay, there's a snake. Can you see the snake closing?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Can you see that snake closely?
Yeah, it's visible.
Yes. Yeah. So my idea was one is a snake from the memory, and the other one is a rope, and then from the memories that you're seeing, that you can make it, you cannot make it. You know, it's there subtly. It's there. So I wanted to explore this whole concept of how you take something from your memory and superimpose it on something that you see. And yeah, someday we'll get this done. This is a very, I'll just take 10 more minutes and I'll close it. It's a very interesting thing of revealing the self. This is an artist, my friend Aparna Rao. She is from Bangalore. And this is very, very interesting because what you're seeing are those paintings there. Those paintings move. They call you. But when you go to them, they don't move. Basically, this is like a chamber in Japan that she did installation. What you're seeing is these are like paintings, right? Can you see this? Can you see this? Can you see that? Yeah, that's automatically moving. So when nobody's in front of it, when nobody's in front of it, it moves and it sort of calls you. And then you go there, it doesn't move. It's very fascinating, and I'll share the link later. But the moment I saw that, it's like our tendency to objectify the self, right? We sort of study the self, and from there I went and said, look, I want to create this installation myself. And I spoke to her and I said, look, instead of these things, I want to have mirrors. Okay. I want to have mirrors, which when I walk, so the mirror is calling me. So when I walk, the mirror doesn't move. And then the mirror, I can see it's very dirty, right? My image is not clear, malam, right? So when I'm looking at myself, the self is calling me, and then I cannot see myself very clearly, right? And then I walk and slowly, as my karma yoga happens and all that happens, then slowly all that the dust clears, the mind purifies, and I'm able to see more and more of myself. But then in the last section of this room, where the Jnanakanda, it's just, I can't see anything. It's beautiful, it's clean, it's plain, it's a mirror, but my image is not there. Because consciousness, after a point, you can't reflect it, right? So, so I want to create this installation in that format to study this part of how the mind, you have to purify the mind, and then you can't see it. This is other installation that I want to do. It's a pity I couldn't show it, but yeah. Then this is the large magnum opus. There's an artist called James Turrell. He works with light as material. I've been talking about thought as material, right? He works as light and space, light as material. So his entire work is focused on how do I sculpt using light, and is just fantastic. So he bought this crater 45 years ago. It's called Rodin's Crater. It's in Arizona district. It's in Arizona state. And you can see like a shivling there, right? So it's a crater. It's an artwork he's working on for the 45 years. It's going to be inaugurated in a year or so. And it's an interplay on how to present light and space and astronomy. And it's just a fantastic artwork. There's some 27 spaces within this crater that you can enjoy the work. Now, this is, see how huge this is. So inside, so he works on, you can see how he looks at the sky from inside, how he presents, captures the sky. So now, the sankalpam that I have taken is that I want to take my niece, Rukmini Vijay Kumar, she is going to dance day after tomorrow, for this inauguration, to make her dance. She just finished doing a dance at the Chidambaram temple. You know, Chidambaram temple is very unique in the sense that the Lord is space. You know, the element space is the Lord there.
Yeah. Akash
So,
yeah.
Akash Tattva. So I am seeing, and she just finished in the Shivratri, she was dancing there, and we're publishing a book. So I told her that, look, I want to produce a dance performance by you. I want to a show at Rodin's Crater, where the artist, you know, there's celebration of light and space, and we have an Indian artist doing a tribute to our space and Shiva. You know, just imagine. I mean, just go back to seeing that whole thing. I mean, this would be, you know, one of my life dreams if I'm able to pull this off. I don't know. I was telling Rukmini that, look, I know you. I am there. We don't know yet James Turrell, so we have to ask him, but we'll get there. So, so we'll get there. But just imagine that whole thing of Rodin's Crater, and then you have Rukmini there dancing, you know, tribute to, oh man, that would be fantastic. So that's the thing. The other thing is, the last one is the tribute to Jagat, because I believe that, you know, there's so much of over-intellectualization that's happening, and I want people to get back a sense of devotion. And I think a lot of Westerners who are searching for spirituality are doing it with an ego, or doing it at the intellectual level. At some point in time, they would come to surrender, they would come to devotion. That is the easiest entry. The pathway for them would be worshipping the nature, because that's an easy access. Because anyway, they're environmentalists. They're worried about the environment. So there's an angle of being an environmentalist, and therefore expressing devotion to environment is an easy access to bhakti. So this is the environment path that we are trying to create here in Hyderabad, and the whole thing would be based on display of devotion to the nature and celebrating Jagat, so to speak. So this is the last one, Nithin, understanding Mumukshutvam. This is this Vietnamese artist, and this is something when I saw this, I could see that determination with which they were walking towards a particular goal. I could see that Mumukshutvam, and I don't know. I want to end this with saying that, look, would I ever be, would I always be outside this image, appreciating this, or would I actually have the qualification and the mumukshutvam to set on the path of liberation? So I don't know that yet. But thank you very much for patiently listening to all my theories on non-dualism and art. And it's been wonderful explaining myself. And thank you so much.
I have a very quick question before we wrap up. So I asked this before, and I think the audience would be interested to know as well. So when you shared your ideas or your interpretations of Vedanta, of some of the artworks with the artists, so how was their response?
Like the Chinese artist was very, when I explained to him, I had a Skype conversation with him, and I said, look, why I want memento, why I believe in snake and rope and illusion and all that. He was very receptive. In fact, there was an artist whom I corresponded. He was doing blind leading the blind. It features in Katha Upanishad. And there was a Chinese artist I discovered who was doing a series of paintings on blind leading the blind. So that's a very fascinating, journey of. It's a very fascinating journey. So whomever I discover, I mean, I don't present it as our thought, but they're just interested in that idea itself, because that is very profound and very, very deep. I want to create this genre called non-dualism in contemporary art. Because, for example, minimalism started in the 50s and 60s, and the impact of minimalism was all coming from our culture only, and subsequently it has been appropriated and then sort of secularized and all that. But I think the world is, just if you see the trends in art now, if we sort of a school of, artists who create works that are based on Upanishadic thought and non-dualistic thought, I think it would be a great thing. Yeah.
Wonderful. So with this, I think we will finally wrap up.
Thank you.
So it was wonderful hearing you, and I find it very fascinating. All these, different thoughts and how you can, actually go deeper into Advaita Vedanta and a reflection on the aphorisms, very artistic medium. The predominantly we are so used to a rational approach, and somehow the artistic approach, creative approach seems to have sidelined. So hopefully this is brought out more and more in coming time. Thank you for this discussion.
Thank you so much.
Oh, that was really fantastic journey. I remember only one Shanti part of Upanishad which we started with. Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Adas is Purna, Idam is Purna. By investigating into Adas and Idam, you realize the identity between Adas and Idam. What a fantastic way of investigating Idam in form of art to reach Adas in form of Brahman. Fantastic. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for fascinating conversation, Hari Kiran ji and Nithin Sridhar ji.